Your Royal Highness, let's start with Gaza. Do you see a lasting peace there, or this is what we see now as a temporary ceasefire?
I believe that peace should come to the region. And by the region, I mean the Levant. Because if you look at this region, if I can just open parentheses, you have the Gulf Cooperation Council. Many of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries are interested in, at some stage, normalizing with Israel. So they have their influences, of course, and they are influenced by third parties. You have Saudi Arabia, and with a heavy emphasis, of course, on the Red Sea, which, of course, in a sense, takes us back to Gaza, because the Red Sea in the Gulf of Aqaba is only a few kilometers from Gaza. We here are 70 kilometers from Gaza. So we're deeply concerned in this progression towards not only a ceasefire, but towards the recognition of the fact that the population is suffering. It is the people who are suffering, as the politicians exchange ideas and the soldiers prepare for the next round or whatever. But I think what is important is that you have today the bombardment of Gaza, you have the bombardment of targets in Syria, under different rubrics, of course. The Daesh on the one side, the Lebanon, of course, and still Hezbollah is raised as an issue. And, of course, the big elephant in the room, which is the possibility of a resumption of hostilities between Israel, possibly the United States, and Iran. So the region seems to be a smorgasbord of necropolicy, policy where people do not matter. It is not anthropolicy, not policy where people matter. Huge projects for the region do not give any accountability to the human impact. And this is what is turning millions of people against politics and politicians in general, turning people towards extremism and violence.
You're saying that people should matter, right? And in that respect, mutual recognition between nations, between Israelis and Palestinians, what does stay as an obstacle in front of that?
Well, as far as mutual recognition between Israel and Palestinians is concerned, I think that the PA made it very clear that they would recognize a sovereign state if and when we could actually, in all humility, recognize that that sovereign state is doing something effective to end occupation. I remember when, what is the difficulty? I think the basic difficulty is that we have had enough of gesture politics, and we need more content to an end to fighting. Is it a ceasefire? Is it a temporary ceasefire? Is it a commitment to regional stabilization and so forth? So we play with words, but at the end of the day, there is no really defined, clear outcome that we want a stable Levant.
The people of Jordan are as close as possible to Palestinians. Can you tell us, what do Palestinians dream of? Not only as a nation, but as a person, as people.
Well, I was one of the people who in the 70s wrote a study on Palestinian self-determination. Self-determination has become, over the years, the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. But so far as I can see, self-determination is also an expression which covers the whole gamut of free speech. And if you are not allowed, under circumstances of occupation, to express your views And if the standard narrative is only that of the stronger party, then they feel that they have been marginalized and in that context trivialized, which of course is against the enormous outpouring of goodwill towards Palestinians all over the world. So this again gets reinterpreted into terms of toxic hatred. If you're critical of the occupation of the territories, you are also anti-Semitic. Sitting in this fantastic museum, when you look at the Babylonians and the Akkadians and the Sumerians, and you look at the Hebrews as part of that métissage of peoples over the decades, how can we be anti-Semitic when we are very much a part of this region? So I think that the slogans that have applied in the context of the Second World War, the First World War, are not slogans that should be applied to this part of the world. And that's why, talking to a Bulgarian, I want to say that the southern Mediterranean, the southeastern Mediterranean should be the first people to recognize the significance of the Levant and of the eastern Mediterranean in its impact on the way you think. Because after all, the term balkanization lent itself to the fragmentation in this region, to non-viable entities. But if we talk about transhumance, which is what your wonderful young author Kasavova has written about, she talks about the Karachan sheep that travel around the whole of the Balkans, eating just enough not to destroy food security, they now call it. Today, unfortunately, our appetite is so open for taking. We are so greedy that basically coexistence and cohabitation is not possible.
You're talking about Kapka Kasabova and her marvelous metaphor, and we are sitting right here in this marvelous museum where cultures and religions sit peaceful, stay peaceful together.
Yes.
Do you have a magic recipe how actually Middle East could turn in such a place?
Well, I just want to quote, and that's why I'm taking up this paper, Pope Leo, who on the 9th of January said, and I quote, "An era of widespread migratory movements is what we are living. A profound readjustment of geopolitical balances and cultural paradigms, and the condition described as not an era of change, but a change of era." We looked at the religions of the book and believed that they were actually bringing a change of era from materialism and short-term, exaggerated politics to a policy that promotes, to quote again, diplomacy rooted in dialogue, in giving way to a diplomacy based on force. So how can we move back from this precipice that we are about to fall off, all of us, of force and confrontation and toxicity of hatred, unless and until we return to the importance of people and human dignity in R2P, the right to protect, and maybe one day to R2R, the right to respect. But at the moment, we have three letters that plague our very existence. Territoriality, or territorialities in the plural, as a social scientist has pointed out. Identity or identities, and migration or migrations. Is the sovereign state with its flag and its nationalisms, ready to talk in terms of transboundary challenges. For example, COVID took us all by surprise. But did we need COVID to remind us that without each other, we cannot talk about a regional fusion in the interest of stability for all?
Well, maybe we don't need another COVID or another pandemic to do that, but maybe we need a mediator to solve this. Interestingly, that Jordan played this mediator role in the region for a long, long time. My question is mediation a problem in this world when we have much more monologue, much more aggression, and social media are constructing this world in this way?
I am not here to make a monologue about the need for dialogue. I went to university before history in the 60s. I studied Hebrew in the hope that a day would come where this knowledge would serve me in talking to the other. And I've come to the conclusion that in talking to the other actually might be myself. So in that sense, one has to approach dialogue with humility and with a clear conscience to work for regional creative commons. On any issue, take water, for example. We have created in this country an initiative, or many initiatives actually. Blue Peace is one of these initiatives supported by the University of Geneva and the Swiss government, where we train cohorts of young people, Turks, Iranians, Iraqis, Lebanese, Palestinians, Jordanians, and of course then the Israelis say, well, what about us? Well, they were part of this whole concept when we were still breathing the freedom of the post-peace treaty, 1994 peace treaty with Israel vibes. But today, a country that does not play by the rules cannot focus on the subject of a cluster of water, energy, food, and ecosphere. So if Europe started with coal and steel, why can't this region start with the assistance of third parties with water and energy? So you have a thematic approach that brings us together. You have to look for a thematic approach when the quotidien, day-to-day political approach is not making any progress. We cannot give up.
But you have spent all your life talking about interculture and interreligious dialogue. What is stopping the dialogue right now?
I will forgive me, but I'm so interested in what the Pope said the other day, because it really encapsulates everything we've been working for since 1981, when the Secretary General of the United Nations at the time asked us, the us included your humble servant, Prince Sadruddin Aga Khan, who was then presented as an Iranian candidate, my co-chair, and then we had Robert McNamara, Simone Veil, David Owen from the United Kingdom, and the whole concept of Russia and China being a part of the ensemble, Blishenko from Russia and Ruzhin from China. And we presented the report to the General Assembly and was taken affirmatively and unanimously by the General Assembly as a guideline for an independent humanitarian order. And I stress independent. Today, unfortunately, the acquisitive nature of politics in different parts of the world makes it impossible to talk about regional commons. So I quote this wonderful statement: even those who wage war do not wish to have no peace, but only the peace that they desire. So this idea of custom-made peace is only possible if you think you have the power to impose, and that would become an imposed peace. But I think that what is important to remind ourselves is that the protection of the principle of inviolability of human dignity and the sanctity of life always counts for more than any mere national interest. Is that possible? Today, the national interest is more important than the sanctity of life. So we have in Gaza and in the West Bank, domicide, infanticide, femicide. Let it not become cogitocide, cogens. Let us at least hope that we can live to see a future where our right to think independently and to study independently is recognized. Today, this is not possible. There is an override by the overwhelmingly strong in the face of those who are perceived to be marginalized or uprooted. So this movement of migration, unfortunately, is basically what reminds me of Hannah Arendt when she said in World War II, there were those who believed that all of us are supernumerary. And particularly when I say us, in terms of us brown people.
Are you pessimistic about the ultimate victory of human dignity over war, conflict?
I cannot allow myself to be pessimistic, but peace remains a difficult yet realistic good. So let us say, to speak to realistic. The humility to live truthfully and the courage to forgive. Some of us are maybe old school. We have the humility to live truthfully and the courage to forgive. But at the same time, I wanted to make it quite clear that this cannot be achieved through domination. Nobody can forgive anything that reeks of domination and acquisitiveness. That can only be achieved by or constructed patiently with as I said to our Palestinian friends when they went to The Hague, there were 2 points of view represented in Nuremberg. One was an aggregate of violations of human rights, which was Lauterpacht, the great lawyer. And you remember the two-way street, Philip Sand's book in Kiev. And the other one was Professor Lemkin, who actually introduced the word genocide. And we know how difficult it has been to talk about genocide without an aggregate of the violation of human rights. We have to look at an aggregate of indicators of peace before we can talk about building a peace platform. And that includes, particularly on this freezing cold day, with rain and snow expected, at least a compassionate and humane look at what is happening to the people of Gaza.
Your forefathers have participated in this great power game in the Levant. What was the lesson you have learned from history?
The lesson that I have had learned is that more of the same is expected. If you look at the 35 meridian east, a line that runs from Northern Europe through Ukraine and the Black Sea, across the Levant and the Nile Basin, and deep into Africa, we encounter some of the world's established conflicts. Ethiopia's tensions over the Grand Renaissance Dam, the devastation of Ukraine, the tragedy of Gaza, the tragedies of Sudan and South Sudan, the tragedies of the Congo. And I just want to ask myself, why this is. And it was through the words of a German general at the NATO Security Committee that I understood that this line basically is a line dividing high levels of technology from mineral resources. So it's not a question of who you are or how significant you are to the human race achieving, it is what you own. When one sees prime ministers traveling to Western countries and offering a table of rare earth minerals and saying, what would you like? It's like a smorgasbord. What would you like to keep me in a position where I can exercise my regional power? I think that the focus has not changed, because when you said my forebears in the Levant, were they really interested in the people of the Levant, or were they interested in the oil resources of the region? Today, the oil resources have been exploited and are being exploited. The gas resources are being exploited. The gold is being exploited. But where is a word of sympathy for 300 million people in the Levant? The Gulf, I would remind myself and your good self, are, with all due respect, not more than 38 million people. But their incredible wealth means that we need a relationship of intra-independence, whereby we work together to promoting regional commons. Interdependence is not possible between the fabulously rich and the destitute.
As a Hashemite and as a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, what do you think a moral responsibility should leadership bear these days, when we have another examples of irresponsible leadership, of aggression, of violence, of showmanship on highest leadership levels?
Truth would you teach, or save a sinking land? All fear, none aid you, and few understand. This is one of my quotations that I respect. It is not enough to say that you are descended from an authentic understanding of the inspirers of this world in which we live, and undoubtedly the prophets, whether Jesus or Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are among those inspirers. But how can we live up to what we have been asked? In Christianity, they say the meek shall inherit the earth. And I ask myself, how meek do we have to become? In the golden rule, do unto others as you would expect them to do unto you. This has been my mantra for 4 or 5 decades. But I wonder whether inter-religious dialogue is possible, because religions have their own doctrines and live by them. But the main thing is to remember that all religions agree on an ethic of human responsibility. And it is in that context that, with the destruction of multilateral organizations, with the view that the United Nations may not be fit for purpose, the membership of the Security Council and so forth, what is the alternative? So I think that a systemic approach is essential, whereby religion begins to offer the kind of human interaction that is required to dispel the view that this religion or that religion is promoting extremism or promoting political or militarist solutions. And in this context, I sincerely hope and pray that our continuous meetings, not least of all with the Vatican. We have another one prepared for early this year. Our meetings with Christianity, whether Eastern or Western. Our meetings, which have included, of course, Jewish scholars and thinkers to whom we are extremely grateful in terms of their wisdom, that we can dilute the wisdom into practical steps today that are seen by people on the ground. Do we need the United Nations or the United Peoples? So this is the point that I would like to make. It was inspired by friends of Hindu origin in India. And I think that the concept of governments is turning their back on others is what inspired it. Politicians will turn their back on others. People will not. So it is this people-to-people dialogue that I hope we can open between the Levant and the Balkans.
Can one be together Levantine, European, Balkan, Arab together, like people, united people? Is it a regional thing or is it a global idea?
I think that the cultural seeds for this transhumance in terms of the southern and southeastern Mediterranean and in terms of the Levant, if it is not built on gas pipelines and trade routes, but built on cultural exchanges that give priority to human dignity, yes, we can build together. If it's a question of education, the Erasmus program and its extension, yes, we can build together. But if the concept has been ingrained that the Mediterranean Sea has become a sea of death, a divide and not an nexus, then I think that we are flying in the face of not of history, of decency, and of the human ethic to which we strive and endeavor to achieve. We may be in all of this hot housing the extremism that we claim to fear. If we don't act now on a people-to-people basis.